Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting a like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too. Well, let's crack on with today's first story, which comes from a throwaway account and says, am I the arsehole, 30 male, for asking my wife, 26 female, to cover up during an EDM festival? So, a little background. My wife has been going to EDM festivals since before we met. The music isn't really my thing, but I've attended several with her and always have a good time. When we attend these, to say she dresses skimpy is an understatement. Thongs. Pasties? Hold up here. Now, I just had to Google, and it says... I read it as pasties, which is like a British baked pastry with meat and potato inside. But I believe it must be pasties. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. But from a quick Google, they're like little nipple coverings. Imagine that with some pasties, the British version. Anyway, let's continue. Body paint, etc. I was a little shocked at first, but honestly, she looks incredible. I actually find it a bit of a turn on and don't have any issues with it since I'm with her. My brother got married a few months ago and his wife and my wife have become good friends, which is great. She even invited her, and by extension my brother, to the next festival we plan on attending, and she eagerly accepted. Herein lies the problem. While I love my wife's festival outfits when we're amongst strangers, our festival friends that we only see once a year at the festival, I'm not comfortable at all with her wearing such outfits around my brother. I don't think it's appropriate. I asked my wife if she would tone it down for the festival. I'm not saying dress like a nun, but maybe not have your ass cheeks and tits out. I told her I prefer my brother, who we see often, not to be able to so easily imagine her almost nude. She said that she puts a lot of effort into her outfits and that is part of the experience for her. I said that's fine, but then let's just not go with my family. We could cancel and just go to another one by ourselves like normal. She thinks that's an unreasonable request and that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. She also said that cancelling or disinviting my brother and sister-in-law would be incredibly rude, and she was looking forward to attending with sister-in-law. She says I'm being a controlling arsehole. Am I in the wrong here? And we'll start with Rum and Coke, who says, you just posted this in a different sub and I'll say it again. If you want your wife to dress differently so your brother doesn't perv on her, you've said you don't trust him to not perv on her, and that's a problem with him and not her. If he's out here being a creep, that's an issue with his behavior and not with women's outfits. Oshi Jones says, according to the comments I read, your problem is that your brother is going to perv on your wife because of her outfit. So a better title for your dilemma would be, am I the arsehole for policing what my wife wears so my arsehole brother is less likely to perv on her? You're the arsehole. Dixie says, not the arsehole, but I'm a female and behaving and dressing in a way that is clearly and overtly expressing sexuality is nasty around certain people, like in-laws, parents, or kids. However, you're also the type of guy that likes women running around in public basically naked because it turns you on. You're getting exactly the type of girl you want and then expects a magical decency line to be drawn for you and only you. I'll never understand you people. And the majority on the Am I the Arsehole post were all, you're the arsehole. There was a couple of other ones as well, but it was posted in another subreddit, which was the other way completely pretty much, where a user says, I saw nothing wrong with his request. I also have an OnlyFans page and I've had to block my brother from coming across. Just a respect thing. I don't need awkwardness, even if he knows, because his wife was my best friend long before they dated. She's always been my sister before she took my last name. You heard me, she has my last name, not his, lol. I digress. There is no need to complicate things outside of the fun weekend, just for a weekend of extreme fun. I'd rather have a little less fun for the sake of peace, while still including my favourite people. Monton says, so was OP's wife just going to pick her in-laws up in nothing but a thong and body paint and expect them not to be shocked about it? Or was she planning on telling them beforehand? Because what if she had shown up, gotten some looks, and then they cancelled on her? That sounds like a worse and somewhat likely outcome. And one more comment that said, wow, he's such a controlling maniac. He doesn't want his wife to be practically naked in front of his brother. /sarcasm. He had a grip, Reddit. But OP does come in with her update and says, I deleted the throwaway account of the original post, but the gist of the original post is that my wife dresses very provocatively at these events when we go together, which I love. However, she invited my brother and sister-in-law to the next one without consulting me first. I asked her to tone down the outfit since my brother will be in attendance or cancel on them. She thought they were unreasonable requests and that I was being controlling. Many of you agreed and gave me much to think about. It still didn't sit right with me though, so I took another shot explaining my position a little better, taking into account what people said to make a better judgment. So I came home from work and asked my wife to have another discussion about the issue, as I was not sitting okay with how we left it. My wife started, she was a little hurt that I called her outfits inappropriate, and that it seemed like I thought she was doing something wrong. She said she just got really defensive and jumped into nobody tells me what to wear mode instinctively. She also was a little hurt that I wanted to shut down what she thought was a nice gesture. I apologized and told her I may not have communicated well as I was taken by surprise, but that I don't find her outfits inappropriate and that I actually really like them and that she looks gorgeous, but that I am uncomfortable with her wearing them in front of my family. I mentioned to her that she keeps photos of us together when she's wearing that stuff in a private folder on her phone, and also that she only posts tame photos at the camp to social media. Why? I never requested she do that. She said because she doesn't want people from work to see and get a wrong impression since she works in a professional setting. I asked her if she would wear them in front of my mother, and she said no, that she was older and wouldn't understand. She doesn't intend it in a sexual way, and the private folder so nobody comes across them by accident. So I explained that we both agree there's a line on who it's appropriate to let see and who's not, and we just have a disagreement on who's on what side of the line. I explained that I get it. The people at the festival get it. Sister-in-law maybe gets it, but this whole experience is going to be completely alien for my brother. He may view some of the more extreme outfits in a sexual way, particularly throwing dancing and MDMA into the mix. Not that I'd imagine he'd be inappropriate, but that I'd really prefer he not view you like that, and it has the potential to cause awkwardness between us. I also said that just dressing a little more conservative this one time would really make me more comfortable and able to enjoy the festival with her and them. She said she understood my perspective, but still had some concerns. Namely, she's really hoping sister-in-law enjoys herself and wants to continue coming with us, and likely this would mean my brother too. Would I expect her to change permanently? The whole slippery slope thing. I said firstly, we don't even know if they're going to enjoy it or want to return. We go 2 to 3 times a year. If they end up liking it and want to go every year, I'll stop going on my yearly motorcycle trip with the guys and use that time and money to go 3 to 4 times a year. We can do one time with them, where we keep it PG-13, and the rest just you and me like we usually do. This way you're not losing out on a full festival experience, but gaining an additional family one. I also explained that I'm really happy that her and my sister-in-law are getting along so well, and I'm excited for her to experience this with her friend, but that I do prefer just her and I, because it's like an escape from our regular life, where we can just get weird with it. And that bringing people from our day-to-day means I've got to be a little more reserved and can't 100% let loose. She said she totally understands and thinks we just had some miscommunication, and that's a good plan. She said she knows how much I enjoy those motorcycle trips, so being willing to give it up really showed how much it means to me. We're going to look for some new outfits together that will still look great. What I learned from this thread are some of y'all are wild. Calling for a divorce on her end, divorce on my end, absolute unwillingness to compromise, and like insulted at even being asked. How'd you go through life or relationships like that? Divorce over mild disagreements. Then there's the folk who feel the need to call a stranger a slut, a hoe, etc. I mean, even if you feel that way, what possesses someone to type it out? And the request for pictures? Gross. Anyway, all is good between us now. I learned a little about communicating my concerns a little better. Everyone is excited for the event, and for those of you that were truly helpful, thanks. Now, OP adds an additional comment about if she's making the change for OP's brother, and OP says she's not changing to accommodate my brother. She's compromising to make me more comfortable. I accept that the issues lie with me, and wouldn't be an issue if I didn't care, but I do. Yes, it's a festival and most women are dressed with little clothing, but most aren't wearing pasties and thongs. I keep reading it as pasties, man. Many, sure, but not most. I just asked her to go middle of the road for this one. I have a few reasons for this. Firstly, I don't want my brother to see my wife dancing around in that state of undress. She gets flirty. She sometimes will lightly make out with other women. I'm cool with this, but would prefer family not know, etc. There is a possibility that my brother would start to just see her in a sexual way. I'd like to avoid that. Secondly, I feel like because it's going to be such a foreign experience for him, he's likely to talk about it to other family or have pictures maybe. Maybe my wife gets caught in the background, and that it gets back to other family members that I see often. As I mentioned before, I come from an Italian-American Catholic family. Like Sopranos without the crime. They lean conservative. I can already hear the "you let your wife go out like that" comments, implying that I'm some sort of weak pushover because they would never allow their wives to do such a thing. or that I'm some sort of sex freak because I enjoy her dressing like that. And the fact is, I do enjoy it, though I do feel a little bit of shame and guilt about the fact that I do, like I shouldn't. And yes, it would probably be better for society as a whole if I just called them out on their archaic views, or exclude them from my life if they don't change, but I'm just not that guy. Not everything needs to be a fight. I realize all of this could have been solved by letting go of some insecurities, Catholic guilt, and not worrying about what anyone thinks about me or my wife, but I don't know how you just do that. People on the other thread toss out like it's super easy, but it seems like an insurmountable task to me. As many people have said, and I 100% agree with, absolutely none of this is my wife's fault or her problem. It's my problem caused by issues I have in not wanting to deal with all this. But I just want to keep certain aspects of my life separate from family and eat my Sunday gravy in peace. And that's where OP finished their post. But now I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, and let's move on to another story. And our next story comes from ClearCommon5486 and says, am I the arsehole for bringing my daughter to my in-laws party? 33 male, have been with my wife 33 female for 6 years and married for 3. We have a 4-year-old son together, and I also have a 9-year-old daughter that I have sole custody of from a previous relationship. It was barely a relationship, honestly. Recently, my sister-in-law invited us to a restaurant for her birthday, and she told my wife to bring the family, which I took to mean my wife, me, our son, and my daughter. My in-laws have known my daughter since they've been with my wife. They've watched her grow up. I just assumed she was part of the family now. My wife went to my sister-in-law's house, and the plan was for me to go to meet them at the restaurant with the kids a little later on. Everything was fine at the meal, but once we got home and the kids were asleep, my wife got really annoyed at me for bringing my daughter. She said I was wrong for bringing her because she's not family, and that my sister-in-law didn't want her there. I've honestly never got the impression that my daughter wasn't welcome at family events on my wife's side, and no one told me not to bring her. A couple of in-laws have been messaging me and calling me things for bringing my daughter. My mother-in-law told me I was trying to force them to accept my daughter as family. I never understand this logic that you marry someone who has a child, but you don't accept them as family either, and you treat them that way. This child has been in the wife's life for 6 years and still doesn't accept them as family. And a part of me is thinking, well, how long has this behavior been going on? Has that only just surfaced this time? I mean, it may have, but I'm struggling with that. But as soon as those words, because she's not family, left her lips, that would have been it. Game over. But some relevant comments to which OP replied. So the first one says, everyone sucks here because you should never have married someone who doesn't treat your daughter well. OP says, I get that, thank you. This is the first time anything like this has happened though. My wife has never rejected my daughter, and when our relationship started to get more serious, she told me she'd be happy to be a motherly figure to my daughter, so I'm not sure what's changed. Someone says, is there a potential race issue here? OP says possibly, but I don't think so. I'm black and my daughter is too, and my son is mixed, but they don't seem to have an issue with me or my son. Some elaboration on what the in-laws are texting. OP says, my sister-in-law messaged and said she was too worried to tell me to my face about how she felt and told my wife instead. Instead, in case I lashed out at her. She mentioned how she thought my daughter was out of place at a family dinner. My father-in-law was the other person who messaged me, basically saying the same thing as my wife. A commenter says, not the arsehole, but there is info missing from this scenario and a lot of assumptions being made about your wife and her family, as this doesn't make sense. First of all, have you had sole custody of your daughter from day one of your relationship with your wife? Has your daughter's bio mum been involved at all? Has anything changes with custody or visitation in the last several years? What is your daughter's relationship with her half-sibling like? Have there been issues or behavioral problems with your daughter since your son has been born? Are your in-laws from a different cultural, ethnic or religious background than you, or your daughter's mother, and they are now exhibiting prejudice towards her? I hate to bring this up, but I've seen this happen. Have there been issues in your marriage due to disagreements between you and your wife that may have to do with parenting your daughter, and which she may have been confused to her sister or mother, and so they are now negative towards your daughter? Just trying to understand how things got to this point, as I can't imagine a sudden exclusion of a child that's been in everyone's life for years. OP says yes. She was for the first few months, but things happened and I haven't seen her since my daughter was about 6 months old. Nothing has changed. She wasn't too happy when he was first born, but she warmed up to him and she really loves having a little brother now. There hasn't really been any problems with her behavior. She's a really good kid. My daughter and I are both black and my wife and her family are white. That's the only difference I can think of though. No, I didn't think so. So Opie does come back in to update the post and says, I spoke to both my wife and my daughter separately. My daughter has said that sometimes she does feel like my wife excludes her slightly or treats her different from my brother. She did also mention how sometimes my in-laws aren't nice to her and make comments about her not fitting in and just general comments that made her feel unwelcome. She told me she was scared to tell me in case I would be angry at her. I've apologized to her for not realizing how my in-laws were treating her and for making her scared to talk to me. My wife pretty much confirmed what my daughter said. I'm so disgusted and fucking annoyed at her. I don't understand how any could treat a fucking child this way. She's the sweetest little girl. She's never done anything to deserve this, and I just don't understand how they can be so disgusting and fucking cruel. We're planning on getting a divorce, and my wife is planning on moving out after Christmas. The divorce will hopefully be easy since we've agreed on split custody for my son. Once she moves out, she'll have my son every weekend, but that'll probably change once she gets her own house. I'm very grateful that she's been so nice about all this, and there's not been many arguments about the divorce, which is very helpful. Thank you for all of the comments on my last post. If someone says, your wife really hates your daughter so much that she refuses to even work on your marriage, isn't going to fight for it and just accepts it. Opie says she did fight for our marriage and we did have a couple of big fights, but I suppose she realized that I'm not changing my mind and gave up. Someone says years of marriage, a shared child, and she's reacting like the grocery store was out of cheddar, so she had to get Swiss instead. Was there never much affection in this relationship? Was this a marriage of convenience? Opie says it wasn't that easy. I just don't think it's necessary to mention fights that we had over it. Someone says make sure to consult lawyers, and Opie says thanks, and yeah, I'll definitely be speaking to lawyers. Someone says you never had a conversation before you were married about how your wife should treat your daughter. Opie says we did have that conversation, and she never mentioned that she'd feel how she feels towards my daughter. Like Opie said in that update, I never understand it, like, treating a child that way. What the fuck goes through your mind, man? How are you not stepping back and realizing this is just a totally innocent child in all this? The logic is absolutely it's baffling, honestly. And to think about what that child must be thinking at the same time, you know, their bio mother has disappeared and now their stepmom is treating them like this as well. It's just absolutely devastating. I can't imagine what they are going through, as well as all the in-laws treating them poorly for all this time and being too scared to speak up about it. That's sad, man. Fuck those assholes. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Oh man, stories with kids in, man, always gets me. Ooh. And just a huge thank you for your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much once again, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.
Wake up, get up, stretch my legs, eat some breakfast, milk and eggs, brush my teeth up, wash my face, throw my clothes on, start my day. Wake up, I can smell the smoke from the bacon. Let's go, see the sun shining from the windows. Okay.